You might be asking yourself, what the hell is happening in Iraq right now? And if you're asking yourself that question, this video is for you, as of course we have breaking news of rapid deployment of thousands of U.S. troops in the region, as yet again we face another geopolitical quagmire that a lot of the mainstream media figureheads are absolutely lying about right now. Or they're just discussing literally they're discussing the family friendly show here. YouTube penalizes us if we even there mentioned something adult here. Okay, I got it. As they discuss the personal members of individuals on Hollywood, on national television, and this is why in this video we will give you a full, honest, and historical perspective about what exactly is happening in Iraq right now. And all of this is provided because we're not corporate chills like CNN that YouTube loves and promotes. We're supported by you. And one great way to support us is by using crypto privacy backed services like the Brave browser, which has saved me a ton of time and has added security benefits that I truly do enjoy and see as a better alternative to Firefox, Google Chrome, and of course Safari and Internet Explorer. No one wants to use that crap. Just by simply using Brave, you're able to get privacy features, gain free cryptocurrencies yourself, and support this independent media organization that doesn't obsessively talk about schlongs on national television. So yeah, we definitely have a big geopolitical conundrum unfolding in front of our eyes in Iraq, a problem that will not be going away and sadly only going to be getting worse from here. Now, to understand what's happening in Iraq right now, we have to understand just a little bit of history, since it's why a lot of this crap is happening now. Now, Iraq, again, is important to note here, is a former British colony that gained its independence in 1932, and after being carved up by the League of Nations in 1920, bringing together many sectarian sects of people together, all of course done on purpose by the British Kingdom, creating a very powerful vacuum of power, which led way to a divided nation filled with sectarian violence, which creates the perfect conditions for very heavy-handed, centralized, controlled governments, you know, to keep everyone together, and that's exactly what happened. And if you get rid of said heavy-handed centralized authority, you of course will have a massive power vacuum, which is exactly what the US government, the US Pentagon, and even Dick Cheney himself specifically warned about in 1994, saying that invading Iraq, getting rid of Saddam Hussein, going all the way to Baghdad, would lead to a quagmire. Specifically saying himself, quote,
once you got to Iraq and took it over and took down Saddam Hussein's government, then what are you going to put in its place? That's a very volatile part of the world, and if you take down the central government in Iraq, you can easily end up seeing pieces of Iraq fly off. Part of it the Syrians would like to have to the west. Part of eastern Iraq the Iranians would like to claim, fought over for 8 years. In the north, you've got the Kurds, and if the Kurds spin loose and join with the Kurds in Turkey, then you threaten the territorial integrity of Turkey. It's a quagmire.
And surprise, surprise, that's exactly what happened after the U.S. latest invasion to Iraq, and that's exactly the quagmire that's unfolding right now. All on the backdrop of staggering civilian casualties and deaths. At the end of the day, we're all essentially based on a lie that was puppeteered by the U.S. government and sold to us by the mainstream media about chemical weapons of destruction, all while ignoring the fact that the United States government was the one that armed Saddam with chemical weapons in order to fight off some of his own people, and also the Iranian influence in the region, since Iran and Iraq previously before had no love affair for each other and were at war, with Saddam Hussein representing mainly his Ba'athist sect versus, of course, the Shia Iranian presence in his country and also next door that is mainly Iranian, which, by the way, has gotten more of a foothold, and Iran's influence has increased ever since, according to many officials, the United States handed the country over to them because of the vacuum of power created there. So literally, what the United States government doesn't want to happen now, what they said they never wanted to happen, they essentially on many levels did make happen. And there is a Shia influence in Iraq. There's no denying it. And this is important to understand here, especially to understand the latest context of current events that are unfolding, since on December 30th, the United States decided to launch airstrikes on Shia militants in Iraq, assassinating and killing 25 fighters that were there fighting the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, radical Sunni sects. You know, the crazy Allah Akbar Wahhabis. Yeah, those guys who are still in Idlib that for some reason Donald Trump, just even before this latest attack, which was directly responsible to this tweet, on December 26th, Donald Trump said that attacking, quote, innocent civilians, again, innocent civilians in Idlib, where predominantly the Sunni ISIS radicals are hiding out. It's their last hideout, is, quote, carnage. And he detested Russia, Syria, and Iran going after the last remaining foothold of ISIS. And since these militants didn't do that, the United States attacked them and bombed them, which rightfully so has angered the international community on many levels, which of course we're not hearing in the mainstream media. And allegedly now we're being told that this is in retaliation to a U.S. civilian contractor that was killed 2 days before this. And again, I say allegedly because we still haven't gotten a lot of important information regarding that. What contractor, working for what military industrial complex company, why is he in the region where there is known ISIS fighters? This should be questioned. This should be vetted. There should be a lot of transparency around why U.S. contractors are with ISIS. And this retaliation strike was a very significant one. 55 fighters were wounded. Again, 25 casualties. With the Prime Minister of Iraq talking about dangerous consequences for this strike against them on their territory. Russia, of course, denounced this as unacceptable. Iran has called it terrorism. And essentially, if these forces are going after the last remaining pockets of radical Islam in the region, yeah, this latest airstrike does deserve a lot of scrutiny. But it was either ignored or celebrated by the mainstream media and other war hawk individuals, bloodthirsty creatures like John Bolton, who said that the airstrike was, quote, long overdue and a great first step towards what? Towards what? A frickin' war? Another Iraq War 4.05? What? Again, the talking points here are absolutely ridiculous, since these are the same forces that go against ISIS and Al-Qaeda, but yet John Bolton says that this is the price that they pay for supporting terrorism. This, of course, has started a major protest in the region, specifically at the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, which Donald Trump quickly decided to blame all on Iran, saying specifically Iran, quote, will be held fully responsible for lives lost or damages incurred at any of our facilities. Quote, they will pay a very big price. This is not a warning. It is a threat. And for some reason, he says, Happy New Year. And some of the videos we got were absolutely stunning as video emerged of the U.S. Embassy being surrounded by protesters with U.S. troops stuck in one of their safe rooms, surrounded by thousands of protesters that were continually unsuccessfully dispersed from tear gas that was thrown at them. But This was a major protest. Thousands of people took place, and luckily, no one was severely hurt. And in response to all of this, Donald Trump and the U.S. military has rapidly mobilized 750 soldiers as well as thousands of other soldiers to be prepared to launch a defensive maneuver on the embassy in Iraq in case it was breached. But luckily, that situation was avoided. So was war. So was any major significant casualties. Thankfully, that unfolded the way it is, but there is a lot of disinformation still raging about exactly what is happening here. With one side calling the protesters Iranian militants, another side calling them protesters. Whether these protests are done because of the latest airstrikes or from the continued protests that are still going on in Iraq. And we have to understand there are counterpoints saying that these were 100% Iraqi protesters that were angry at the United States for doing this. It is important to note here that ever since October of last year, 2019, there have been major protests happening in Iraq against the corruption of the state that the United States props up in that specific country. And many people are protesting this administration and Iraqi government that is brutally repressing and cracking down on these protests with live ammunition, with many people who have been killed for simply protesting in Iraq. Something that, of course, we don't hear about on the U.S. mainstream media, as contrary to other protests like in Hong Kong, which we do hear a lot about. But some people have been calling the crackdown a total bloodbath that has been continuing on and going on there. And it's pretty clear that Iraqi people and sects of people living in Iraq are fed up with what is happening there. Now, what's happening here, it's not as clear as many people try to make it out. It's not just the Iranian military. And it's not also just Iraqis. It's important to note here that there's a lot of nuance here, that there's a lot of middle ground here, since, of course, we have a Shiite presence and influence in Iraq that rightfully is angry. And what we saw yesterday looked like a major demonstration and anger from that specific population in that country. And there's no denying the fact that it was a demonstration and no lives were lost. And it can't just be fully blamed on the entire government in Iran to push this bastardized geopolitical neocon bloodthirsty obsession to start a war with them. Again, this is where the majority of the disinformation and propaganda is coming from, and it's coming from a long-seated lust by the U.S. military-industrial complex to get into a war with Iran. And this is exactly what we are seeing here, demonstrated by many talking heads and, of course, the mainstream media that specifically only highlight and show you one side of the story. Is there Shia influence in Iraq? Yes, there's no denying that. How coordinated and organized is the Iranian government with all of this? Well, that is very unclear, and the United States military and Donald Trump jumping to those conclusions is extremely worrisome, since it brings us closer to this inevitable war and conflict between the West and Iran, which of course would also involve China and Russia, that will of course be on the side of their long-term ally, Iran. And to me, that is dumb, because war is dumb, and the majority of people don't want war, and wars are literally contrived and created off false pretenses to try to convince you that somehow assassinating and killing someone is the right answer, and it never is. And that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think I'm totally wrong? Let me know if you think so in the comment section below. I love to engage in conversation. I love to learn from you amazing, beautiful human beings that, of course, make these kind of videos, these kind of conversations possible. So sincerely, thank you for everyone for supporting us by using Brave and, of course, being a part of the conversation. And yeah, the military-industrial complex has way too much control of the mainstream media, and we should be doing everything we can to avoid the next possible war. That's my take on it. Love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.